dramatic. So I'm currently in the middle of a move right now, and as someone who has moved a lot in her life, there's always something sort of reflective about moving, about taking your belongings and moving them to another location, or like I'm going to attempt to do, take my belongings, but maybe take less of my belongings, get rid of some belongings. And today, though I have the suitcase out and you would think that clothes would go into the suitcase, you would be wrong, because instead we're going to conquer the books. And I figured while I did that, I would answer one of the questions that I get asked the most that I've just never answered completely in full, and I think the reasons for that will become obvious as we discuss. But that is, why did you quit your corporate job? And the subtext that's not added on but occasionally is added on is, why did you quit your corporate job without having published a book before? This is probably a good time to say that this is not a how-to video by any means, and I think you will hear why pretty soon. And also we'll touch a little once again on making money as a creative professional. But without further ado, maybe with all of the ado. There we go. Let's get started. We're gonna go through my YA books first. You know, either I want to keep for the attachment reason or that I plan to reread. And the rest at this point, it's time for that heart to heart. Because quite frankly, this is ridiculous. So for those of you who didn't know, I worked a corporate finance job after graduating with a major in finance and minor in economics, so very far away from writing. Though I did start an on-campus writing group at my university, and I call it a corporate finance job, but really I did finance and business on several accounts within the financial services sector of the company that I worked for, a Fortune 50 company, right? Okay. First, I started advancing, you know, doing the right things, becoming the president of some of the employee network groups there, and all of this combined with working more hours. And I've talked vaguely about this before, but I want to get more specific in saying that I was working weekends. I was getting calls while I was on holidays with my family. I was having to put out fires, which is a term that I've thankfully not had to use since I quit my job. And I saw what my trajectory was, and I had this aha moment of like, this is only going to get worse from here on out. I actually have a very specific memory of this night that one of the SVPs was hanging out with us under the guise of mentorship, but really just, you know, not going home because their home lives were kind of screwy, because they were never home, and that they were hanging out with us only to then go to the office later. And by later, I mean this was already like 7:30 at the bar. They were gonna go back and work till midnight kind of thing. One row down. But the other day I actually went back and revisited some of my old emails and some of my old journal entries from the time. It was actually pretty early on that I realized the corporate life just wasn't what I wanted, which is to say that I stuck it out for probably longer than I should have, than was healthy, just because I was scared of making that leap. So then when I had that aha moment and then all of this repressed, like I don't want to be here energy, now each and every day after genuinely became a struggle, was pretty painful. I was just so incredibly unhappy. And I always try to frame this as a positive when all of the other times I've sort of glossed over this issue, because I know there are a lot of other people perhaps currently in the situation that I used to be in. And I don't necessarily mean like all corporate people here or anything. I'm just talking about like that feeling of dread when you know you have to get up out of bed and go to work every day at a job that you're unhappy in and day out, and feeling very stuck and lost and like you're spiraling, that sort of thing. So I started looking for other jobs, interviewing at other big corporations, which like I realized wasn't gonna be any different. So then I started looking at small companies. But all the while I had this nagging voice in the back of my head saying that I had an entire year's worth of expenses saved up. Meaning all expenses, rent, car insurance, food, going out. I could live exactly the same life that I was living and not work for an entire year. And when was a better time to try and live my dream? You know, I wasn't in a serious relationship. I didn't have children. I didn't have a chronic health problem. There was nothing stopping me from quitting, and that ended up being a pretty dangerous epiphany. And so I quit. I was coming up on a pretty long vacation and preparing for that, and I didn't want to get bombarded with emails halfway across the world and everything before then all combined to make this perfect storm. I put in my 2 weeks, I transitioned my work, and I was gone without a permanent backup plan. And now I could do all of this, one, because of my degree and the likelihood I could readily find a job when needed, two, because I'd saved up so much, and then what actually happened, three, which is not the first bit of privilege in this story, being able to go to university at all, but my parents told me that I could live with them for free instead of using up my savings. I was free, y'all. I was free. Like this book, you are going to a new home. Be free. I say it took a year to fully transition into working for myself, and that's true. I know a bunch of people are experiencing a similar shift for the first time due to COVID kind of affecting all of our lives. And for some people that's easy, but for a lot of us, when you're so used to a specific structure, like literally from the time you're a kid and you're going to school 5 days of the week to then working in like a same kind of 9 to 5 every day, and then working extra, but I digress. It's weird now being the sole person responsible for like if you get up and work, or if you work in your pajamas, or if you just decide to binge watch all of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. How heavy are you now? Oh fuck. Oh shit. Oh no. Well, he went down. He went down hard. That'll be fun. On to the next one. So my dream was to be an author and write novels for a living, and now do I realize this was all a bit pie in the sky. Yes. Obviously some people are successful enough to only have to write novels for their living, but like most people who publish books will never have that be their lives. Now at the time of quitting, I also never had anyone beta read a full novel of mine. I wrote so much in school, and then my writing had sort of an inverse relationship with the amount of hours I was putting in at work, as so often happens. And was I naive? Yes. But did I have an entire year saved? Yes. Was there such a weight in my chest that I genuinely couldn't imagine doing anything else? Yes. I don't know if it was full burnout or what, but quitting and having this dream was easily the healthiest thing I could have ever done for myself. Now that's not to say I didn't feel bad about it, especially as it took a while to start making money for myself. There was lots of stigma about being a bum without a job and living with my parents, especially as someone who had like up until that point had otherwise completely excelled in society's sort of like traditionally expected ways, right? So now that I'm older and wiser and have been doing this for a while, I have more realistic dreams. More realistic dreams that are still not going back and working corporate. Of course, the longer I don't use my degree outside of writing business and finance articles, the harder it would be for me to get a fallback job, but like, I don't want it. Now I have a better appreciation for how long it takes me to write novels. I've learned which novels are worth continuing with my current skill set. I've learned how to make money in other avenues that aren't fiction work. And all of this is important to ultimately make my dream of full-time creative professional a reality, which arguably is my reality now. It's just that I think I still have this monetary goal of getting back to what I was making in my corporate years. And I talked about this in other videos, but I think I'll be able to do it by about the time I turn 30. You know, doing what I want to do, writing what I want to write, taking the jobs that I want to take. Now, it's been hard to talk about this in full because though those years of corporate work weren't without their fun, it was a personally really challenging time, and you know that always makes it hard. But I also don't want to discourage anyone from the corporate life if that is their dream, and or if they don't have a fallback option, which a lot of people don't. You know, when I quit, I had a lot of people actually coming up to me and telling me that like they were really proud of me, and that if they were able to do that, they would do the same thing, but they couldn't because they had kids. It's hard because we're all on our own personal journeys, and I want to paint a full picture of how I did this and also not say that it's a template by any means. It's gonna be so hard to get this. I don't know that y'all can even see with the lighting. There's one last shelf. And looking back, it's hard to say what I would change. So I'm not using my degree in the way that it's like traditionally used. It was really helpful, and I don't know if there's an equal field that I would have enjoyed more that would have also made me enough money that I could save up a year of expenses. Or I don't know if there's a field I could have studied where I would have liked it more, made less money, but also been able to start up my freelance career at the same time. Maybe. I could have started doing all of this when I was in college. It's just impossible to say. Just like these books are impossible to reach. How and why did I decide this was a good idea? I did it. So I hope that answers the question, but I'd actually like to answer a few other questions that are cursory to this one. I don't know. If I've discussed it more in full elsewhere, I will link it somewhere. But one I get a lot is how do you make money? Freelance writing, other freelance projects, Patreon, YouTube, any sort of partnership or sponsorship, the tiniest amount from my personal essays on Medium, which are actually the first thing that I've published that I wrote that I wanted to write creative nonfiction wise, which is really cool. As I query magazines and newspapers in the future, this kind of category will go up, and I'll be sure to talk about that more then in a bit, actually. And one day, fiction. Short stories, novellas, novels. Some of that will happen sooner than other parts of that, and I am very excited. Now, this question can actually be kind of hard to answer sometimes because I understand why people ask, and I try to be as open as possible, but combined with not having any books published yet on authortube, that'll be important. It creates this sort of failure tone that people approach me with, like, why don't you make money from your fiction yet? And just ignoring how, or the fact that I make money elsewhere. This is also like a stigma against people who work from home, or even potentially people who make money in lots of different ways, or like hodgepodging it together, you know? As if the work that I do outside of novel writing is somehow not legitimate for some people. There was actually a live stream that I think I did last month by the time y'all are watching this, and thankfully I had so many people in the chat who were able to be like, oh, she's talked about this before here or whatever. But I get it in my DMs and comments and stuff too. The fact of the matter is I'm gonna make money in the 6 other ways, more money in those 6 other ways for a while before I ever start making money in this fiction work. And even when I do start making money in the fiction work, these 6 other ways are still going to be legitimate ways that I'm making money, and will, you know, except that I have a platform, so we'll get into that topic a whole other time. But under pen names that are not Kate Cavanaugh, it's gonna take longer to ramp this sort of fiction stuff up and making money from that. And I know we've talked about it being authortube instead of writetube, but you know, that's just how it goes. People do tend to have a focus on the actual publishing of the novels. That's gonna work. But that also leads into some questions I've seen specifically on this video. Ooh, that glow though. Hi, sun. Why? That's just because I'm pale. I got some comments specifically on this video about people saying that they want to see authortubers progress, and that it's frustrating or disheartening to see authortubers, in this instance me, seemingly not making progress because they don't have a book out. Or, you know, as someone who can't read my work, you don't have any proof of progress. That's probably a better way to phrase it. That's probably a more correct way to phrase it. And now this is something that I never realized because it's not the way that I follow authortubers or determine why I like to watch people's content, and there's not anything wrong with either method. Like, obviously I'm always really excited when anyone is publishing, and like Laura said in her authortube oldie tag, I really cannot wait for the first authortuber to get their agent or get their book deal that didn't already have that in the works. Like, that's gonna be so awesome. So like, part of me gets it, but it's not why I choose to watch people. So I actually had no idea that anything I was doing was making people feel that way. And if you do feel that way, if me not having a book out stresses you out while you're watching my videos, or if you just don't like it because you can't see the progress, you can't personally measure it, then like, by all means, please unsubscribe. Maybe in a year, come back. And now the final question I want to talk about is I've seen some people ask if when I start making money from fiction work, will I share like the money and stats on that? And yes, as much as I can share, I will share. It's so interesting for me to snoop on Amazon ranks and see what that translates to money-wise, especially because you can run all sorts of different like 99-cent deals or like perma freebies and stuff like that. So it's just really interesting to try and dissect that. I also love bothering my friends who have Publishing Rocket and asking them to look something up. And also just deciphering between the good, nice and significant deals within the trad pub world. And then all the different ways you can make money selling directly to businesses. So ways that wouldn't ever be tracked for like the USA Today bestsellers list, but that still make you a lot of money. So it's just all a very fascinating conversation. And when I get to that point, yeah, of course, I do hope to share. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be most interesting for me is as time goes on, as I have more experience, especially as I'm getting closer and closer to publication, if my own personal channel will start transitioning into more how-to stuff as well. Like once I gain experience, or maybe more aptly how not to. So this is my problem. I have so many of these books that I bought because they were on sale, but I think I only got halfway through this. And I'm like, but there's a whole series, so I think I'm just gonna take the first book. I think that's it. I think that's all I'm gonna do. Is just this first one, because I don't know that I like the others, so there's no reason to bring them. My library has so much. Anyways, like I might have alluded to, this video was actually pre-filmed. I should be moving as this video goes live. So here's to hoping that that all goes well, and also that I hope to answer some of the questions that are frequently asked. Please do comment down below. Let me know if you've ever changed careers. Let me know. This is the struggle because I want to ask if anyone else has had that experience with corporate life, but it's a kind of negative topic, especially surrounding the burnout and everything like that. And again, I don't want to put anyone off doing that when potentially that is, you know, the only option. So maybe let me know if you've made a life change that either had positive or negative effects that you weren't expecting, and has your own like writing dreams and career goals and aspirations changed over time as you learn more. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Wish me good luck on the move. I will see you all very soon with a new video. Bye. So my dream was to be an I cannot talk today. I don't like this lighting either.